Hey there. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Unsecurity Podcast. This is episode 115, and the date is January 19th, 2021. I'm your host, Evan Francine, and joining me as usual is my good friend and coworker, Brad Nye.
Good
Brad, how
morning.
you doing?
Not fully awake yet, but we'll get there.
Right, right. We have a special guest with us this week, Amy McLaughlin. Hi, Amy.
Hi, good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, this is the second time you've been on the show, right?
Yes, I was on last summer.
Yeah, the Woman in Security series.
Yep.
Sure that wasn't like 5 years ago? Feels like
Like-
it's been.
I know it does kind of feel like it was in the lost year.
Yeah, it's nuts. So today we got a good show in store. We invited Amy onto the show because I wanted to talk about her new book. She released a new book, I think, just a couple of weeks ago, and it's on Amazon. I think it's a pretty darn cool thing. So we're going to talk about that and talk about why Amy wrote the book and all that good stuff. And then we'll transition into talking about I'm back from Cancun, which is good because the internet works here, doesn't work in Cancun. My wife's teeth got fixed. That's good, stuff like that. But we'll talk about while I was down there, I wrote kind of the outline for the book that Brad and I are working on. So we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about the CISSP Mentor Program. This is 2021. It's our 12th consecutive year of doing that good stuff. That's pretty exciting. And then we'll get to news. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Catching up quick. How you guys doing? You guys healthy, happy? Mostly. Amy, it's got to be
Yep.
like 5 a.m. your time?
It is 5 a.m. my time.
You
Bright and
basically-
early.
I was gonna say I can't complain about being tired.
No.
I
not
just
gonna-
laugh.
I slept I couldn't sleep last night, so I got up at 11:30. Been up since then.
Ooh.
Yeah, no.
That's
I was texting with Chris Roberts at I don't know what time. He wrote a wrote a LinkedIn post late last night. What time was it? Yeah, so we were texting at 1:45 this morning about worth. What's he worth? So he's kind of an expensive resource, and somebody was looking to engage him, and come down to talking price, and they didn't like the price, but so providing value to the company. I think if you can justify your value, which all of us should do, price, the number shouldn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, if I bring in $500,000 with the revenue or whatever profit, if that's, the value I provide, well, then paying me $300,000-$400,000 is not out of the question, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about that this morning, and then, those numbers are all hypothetical, right? I think Chris is like $15 an hour, something like that. I mean, he's cheap. So maybe times 10.
Two zeros.
yeah.
Yeah, but I could sense his frustration, in that post. So if you go to LinkedIn and check out, his profile, you'll see what he posted, and you could sense the frustration. Just like, yeah, I mean, that's what I cost. That's what I'm worth.
Yeah.
So that's
Tough to argue with
that's
that.
yeah, I think so too. And so, but part of your job, I think, as a resource looking for work or whatever. And I don't think Chris is necessarily even looking for work. I think somebody was looking for him, but it's part of your deal, right? To get the job is you have to prove your value. Same if you're going for a raise, right? You got to prove your value. And I'm sure there's other factors that play in. I think one of the things we talked about last week, Amy, on the Daily Insanity was pay disparities, by gender, right? we still have that issue.
Yes.
Women don't get paid the same amount.
And
That's different.
and I think the other thing too, when you're in Chris's situation, if you're an independent contractor, you might as well take 50% of that off of what you just made in terms of taxes and other expenses.
Yeah, healthcare and
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you're not
Yeah,
getting
for
all the
sure.
benefits of working for an employer who provides benefits. And you're not getting your taxes pre-deducted.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah. It was a good discussion. I'd like to explore maybe Chris coming and doing some things for us, at FRSecure. Because I think it'd be a good resource, and so if you can demonstrate the value, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're just going because your gut tells you or it feels right or, oh my gosh, Chris Roberts, well, it's probably the wrong reason. Yeah. So that was this morning. You guys got sleep, Chris or Brad? How much sleep did you get?
I got like 6 hours, but I didn't sleep well. I don't know.
Why not?
Yes, sinuses, allergies for whatever reason.
How about you, Amy? How much sleep did you get?
Yeah, probably about 7 solid.
That's impressive.
Well, I knew I was getting
How
up
do you-
early, so I went to bed early.
Wow. Now, do you have kids at home, Amy?
Just one. Yeah.
Okay. I do too, just one. Brad, you got 3, right?
Yeah. Although the youngest kindergartner is going back today, so we'll see how that goes and how long that lasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because kids always eat into your sleep.
Oh yeah, and he had a rough night last night because they've all been home since basically Thanksgiving, so it's been 6 weeks of 3 kids all the time. But yeah, he had a rough evening.
I feel like in COVID, I'm blessed. My son is in college. He's pretty self-sufficient, and for folks who are home with 2, 3, 4, 5 younger kids, whoo.
Right.
Yeah, my daughters are really good. I couldn't ask for them to be better, but it's been a long 6 weeks.
Well, especially when you consider, the work we do, right? Sometimes we work long hours,
Mm-hmm.
working long hours, trying to balance that between, family stuff, keeping wife or spouse or husband happy at the same time as, taking care of the house and taking care of the kids. And, it's a challenge. But they say it's a blessing too. Do you agree with that?
I think there has been
It's
some
just public.
No, there have been positives, like seeing the bond and relationship between the kids and how well they've been doing together overall. They obviously have their moments of like, oh my, would you stop? But just how well they've all done. I think that there will be some long-term benefits for them having basically spent the last year stuck with each other.
Yeah. Stuck with each other. That's us.
It is a blessing, though. I think so. I've enjoyed being at home. My cats love me being at home.
My dog loves being our new dog. She sits on I moved to one of our spare bedrooms because it's warmer in here. The layout is nice. My desk, I've got 3 monitors. And one of the benefits is when I get tired, so like I've been up since 11:30 last night, I get tired, I can go take a 20-minute nap right behind me. The bad thing is my dog lays on that bed, and if I'm not giving her attention, she'll sit right behind me and bark. Yeah, she's a crazy dog. All right. So Amy, this book, it's on Amazon. It's titled Learning Continuity Planning, a handbook for schools, colleges, and universities. It's out on paperback and Kindle. I've started to read it, but I haven't finished it. So I'm going to be honest with that. But I love the concept. I know you from, I guess just interacting in the last year. So I'm sure, what I continue to read will be awesome. When did you start the book?
I started it last spring, I think in about April, May. And,
Okay.
we hit COVID, and it was so apparent to me that most colleges, schools, universities were not prepared for not just a pandemic, but just any kind of long-term disaster. And so I thought, well, I could use some of those brain cells to put together a guidebook to help them through it.
Really cool. When did you, okay, so you're talking spring of 2020. The book was released January 2nd, 2021.
Yep.
So you turned the book around in a pretty quickly.
Yeah, one of the things about, what is it? Mark Twain said, "Write what you know." And one of the things about being in this industry for 20 years now is I know a bit about continuity planning, and so I basically took all of those years of knowledge, but focused them on the education environment. I think the education environment is really, really different in some ways, in that you can't really use the term business continuity planning with a lot of people in education because they don't see it as a business. They see it as a mission. And so they go, yeah, business continuity planning. What does that have to do with me? So refocusing on how you keep people learning through a disaster of any kind was really the emphasis there.
Cool. So it's a handbook for schools, colleges, and universities. When you say schools, that's like K-12?
K-12.
As well?
Yep.
Okay, Awesome. So really the whole gamut of schools. And based on your experience in the schools that you've worked with, and you're in that industry, are schools generally not good at this? I mean, are they kind of in bad shape around business continuity or continuity planning in general?
I would say that they're going to be in much better shape after this last year because they've had to learn how to plan on the fly. But I think that one of the challenges that they have is oftentimes especially in K-12, there's a lot of mandated things you have to do. And that list is really long. So anything that isn't mandated, like business continuity planning, doesn't necessarily make the list. And then usually my experience with K-12 is that you have fairly small teams in terms of the technology staff who are supporting large numbers of people, right? So your IT director or CIO is usually also responsible for security, for continuity planning, for basically everything. So part of my emphasis here was also this is how you engage the rest of the district. This is why this isn't just a technology issue. In fact, it really isn't a technology issue. Technology is the enabler in most cases. With a few exceptions, there are times when your continuity planning is really based on the fact that, for example, your data center just blew apart in a halon eruption, which happened to a friend of mine who I referenced in the book. But by and large, things like earthquakes and pandemics and fires are going to be disasters with a broader reach than just technology. And technology is what enables us to get through them. So,
Yeah, I would agree. I'm glad you said that. I think the biggest challenge that I've seen with anything K through 12 or higher ed is lack of resources, lack of support in the technology department. I've seen districts, K-12 districts that have 3 IT staff for the entire district. How are you supposed to get anything done when you're that thin?
Yeah, exactly. And then, the reason the book is it isn't it isn't like a big academic book is because I wanted it to be very practical. People in that situation don't have time to read a big thick book. They just need to get to the meat of it. What do I need to do? And so I try to keep it very sort of brief and actionable, because if you have 3 people to support, 5 or 6,000 students and staff, you're really going to struggle. And even at the higher ed level, there are a lot of smaller colleges and universities that also run with very small technology teams. And even at large universities, you might have a large team, but you also have a large overhead of technology they have to maintain.
And let's be honest, the challenge of students and is doing things and pushing boundaries and challenging, right? And trying to manage and maintain that.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to user test anything, students will find their way into every nook and cranny, whether you want them to or not. So yeah. And they'll come up with the unique ways to use things that would never have occurred to you. And that's not always a bad thing. It can just be I don't understand how to use this product. If you do any in-house development, it can actually be a really good thing for developers to see that not everybody thinks the way they do. But yes, they're the ultimate UX testers, students.
Oh, you're muted, Evan.
Whoop. Oh.
Sorry, it's 2020 playing over and over again. There are a bunch of little hackers, right? I mean, I think what makes a good hacker is that out of the box curiosity. And it seems like, K-12 students and maybe even higher ed students have that. It's then, do we let's try to figure out how to make them little ethical hackers versus little unethical hackers.
Well, I think that's the key, right? Is that you have, you don't want to squash people's creativity. What you want to do is help them use it for you. And I think that, we see a lot of that too in how students have responded to COVID, right? Different creative approaches to accessing the internet and managing to get through what has been a really unusual time period. So yeah, I think encouraging them in a way that is appropriate and ethical can help them become, better citizens, better students, and use that creativity.
Now, have you written a book before, Amy? Or is this your first book?
No, this is my first book. I've started several before, but this is the first one I finished. And I have to say that it's really important to have accountability. Ryan Cloutier, RC Cola.
Yep.
He wrote the foreword for the book and was one of several of my cheerleaders, my spouse, Steve, and a friend of mine, Greg, who's written several books on change management. Between the 3 of them, I felt like I was accountable to getting this done.
That's cool. What would you say your biggest challenge was? Would it be accountability, or did you have times when you were just stuck and kind of frustrated, or?
I think the biggest challenge is actually getting started. Okay. Because I had it all, and this is how I write in general. I tend to have it all in my head, but it's different to have a 20-page paper in your head and have a whole book in your head, because just the process of translating it from your head to the paper is just so much bigger. And so just actually like scheduling time and like, I'm working on this right now. This is what I'm going to accomplish today. That was, I think, the biggest challenge. Yeah. It's
cool.
I'm also not a very structured person, like just naturally. I put a lot of structure into my life because, kind of have to. But so building the structure to do that was a challenge for me.
That's cool. I've always, when I went through the process myself, I strongly believe in it, even today, that everybody's got a book inside of them, whether or not they want to get it out and put it into paper, that's entirely up to them. But the process I found to be very, very rewarding, It was a good exercise in self-discipline. It was a good exercise in introspection. I learned a lot of things about myself. Did you kind of have those moments as through the process?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot about, well, the tenacity component, right? The sticking to it and getting it done. Um, it's really interesting. My dad has actually written about 10 books. In fact, he's got another one coming out just in a few weeks. And despite the fact that I've like seen him writing books, I didn't really have a concept of what it took to get it done until I did it myself. So that was really interesting to me, is to like realize, and I think the other thing is to I had to disconnect myself from the rules. Ryan will tell you that I have a tendency to bleed red pen on everything people write. And when you're actually writing to get content out, you just have to kind of set the grammar rules aside, get the information out, and then come back and clean it up. Because otherwise it just doesn't, the flow isn't there. At least that's what I had to do. And that's really hard for me because I am, very committed to grammar.
Right.
Almost like getting that stream of consciousness. Just the way I like to say it with when we write articles and blog posts, it's like I'll talk and just sit with the marketing person, and it's like the word vomit. It's just go and just let it all come out, and then let them handle cleaning up.
Yeah. And I think that was, that was the challenge, of course. And when I got it mostly done, because I hadn't paid that much attention to my grammar as I went, I sent it over to my editor, who's my dad, and he was like, red pen all over. So
That's cool. Well, I love the way the book is laid out too. It's like you said, I think it's very, very actionable. It's an easy read. It starts with learning continuity planning, and I like how you open up with making the case. Like for people who haven't done it, I mean, I think you got different sides of the spectrum. You get people that have never done business continuity planning. They don't see the value in it. Maybe they're an approver. Maybe they're the school board or, the superintendent or something like that. And then you've got the other side where, you might be one of those 3 IT folks that has to support an entire district. And you're trying to make the case like, hey, we got to do something here. And I think your book can be used for both of those scenarios, which is really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I tried to make it really user friendly. I think, one of the things I want to point out too is I added a chapter that is probably unusual in business continuity planning, which is on being human. And I know, Evan, you're really cognizant of mental health, and Brad is too. And, when you go through like any kind of business continuity process, when you actually have to implement it in a disaster, you have to pay attention to people's mental well-being and their health and where they are, because it's really easy. I know, at least for myself and for a lot of my colleagues, will work 60, 70, 80, 90 hours. And we need to pay attention to our own mental health.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Show me an IT person that hasn't gone through something where they've worked 36, 48 hours straight.
Mm-hmm. Right. And in a disaster scenario, you could also be that person whose house has been destroyed by a fire, or who has family members who are ill, or whatever it happens to be. And it's really important that we recognize that for our team members and our colleagues, and make sure that we take care of each other. So I added an entire chapter on strategies for dealing with trauma and re-traumatization, and sort of the mental health components.
And you have a background in that, right?
I do. I started my original career. Well, actually, my original career plan was to teach English, but then I went into marriage and family therapy, and I spent some time as a therapist. Not a lot of time, because I decided that just wasn't like the right approach to life for me. But I really value mental health and well-being, and I think it's really important to pay attention to it. It's an area that's really suffered this last year for a lot of people. So,
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's hit home for me, the mental health piece. Well, it hits home for me every day, right? I have my own struggles, and I think uh, being honest with yourself, and some people don't have the ability to even get there, and I get it. Because, I think some mental health things can also be used as a superpower. ADD, if you're not aware of it, right, it's can be probably very destructive. But if you can harness it, man, it's pretty cool. I can have lists all over this place and have 50 projects all about 10% done. I might get and I might get one of them. Who knows?
That's a good point. I also think it's really important to recognize that we all have, nobody is free of mental health challenges, right? Because there are things that are triggered by circumstance, anxiety, depression. I mean, there's just recognizing that when you're working as part of a team in any kind of scenario, but especially in a disaster scenario, there's other stuff going on for people besides the obvious. Because you just don't know what people have experienced in the past or how that might resurface for them. So I think it's important to recognize it. And I've read a lot of BCP books, but very rarely does anybody talk about the people element. It's usually about, keeping money moving or whatever, depending on your your line of business. And I think
I love the fact that you added that.
Well, especially in education, because when you're an educator, you have to be present for your students, and your students have their own stuff going on, right? So it's really important to be aware of it.
I like it. Yeah, it's such a high stress situation that just anything could trigger whatever. And yeah, I like that. Just being aware of what the other people are going through and aware of them. So I like that.
Yeah. I think when you talk about teachers, they have such a tough job as it is, right? Bunch of kids that you need to deal with. You also have to answer to the administration. You also answer to parents. Parents can be a real pain in the butt. And couple that with your own marriage, your own kids, your own bills to pay, and now you've got a disaster on your hand too. That's I'm glad you covered that. And the book too is very logical. It's easy to follow through. You talk about building the case for it and then preparing, to plan, right? Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to get involved? You go into the inventory, which I'm a big fan of that, because how can I possibly protect the things I don't know I have? And then go into the practical, building the plan all the way through testing, lessons learned. I mean, it's a damn good book. You did a great job, Amy.
Well, thank you. I tried to just make it easy. Like you could check a list, okay, next I'm going to do this. Next I'm going to do this. And it can be so overwhelming, right? To take on that kind of planning. So just each step by step. And I think it's really, it's so important to engage the people around you. This isn't something you should do in a vacuum. But I also know that you need to have some support in making the case. I once worked for somebody who heavily criticized I was responsible for business continuity planning, and they're like, yeah, I don't know why we spend all this time on this, because these disasters are never going to happen. And
page 126.
Yeah. These disasters happen, right? And so, I guess, there's a element of the book that was a response to that no, it's really, really important to think about what could happen, because quite frankly, if you don't, you're just banking on the odds being in your favor.
Well, and for the majority of the audience, in terms of the business side of it, it's like we're talking about the normal people versus us. Like you're trying to translate a pretty complex, detailed process into language that normal people that don't think about this understand and get.
Yeah, that's really the goal, right? Is to be that universal translator. I think that that's the area where our industry really struggles, is because let's face it, we all like nerd out. You know, you and I and Evan, we can have a conversation that other people would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I think being able to translate that and make it accessible to people who don't live in this space all the time is one of the keys to success for either for continuity planning, for security, um, you know, just for being a successful organization when it comes to integrating technology.
Yeah, totally. One of the reasons why I got up early is I have a talk today to give at InfraGard, and the title for my talk is "They're Not Listening." So along those same lines, there's reasons why they're not listening. It's not because they're dumb. It's not because they don't care. We haven't done a good job. I actually outlined 5 reasons why I think they don't listen. One is we've oversold fear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Logic and reason are much better sales points than fear.
Right. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
You can only play the Chicken Little card once or twice.
Well, it's the constant deluge of the breaches, and people just get fatigued and tune it out. And as soon as that happens, we're fighting an uphill battle that's even harder.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
And
cool. This is a good.
you're talking about the unknown, right? And people don't want to know about the unknown.
Right.
So,
Well, ignorance certainly won't save you from it.
No.
it's
No.
true.
So when that bad thing happens, see, that's the thing. I've had conversations. I remember one that stuck out with me with a bank president. It was a pretty good sized bank, and one of the things that I had kind of railed on, and I ranted a little bit, was the fact that you didn't have an incident response plan, right? And so you got incident response plans, you've got disaster recovery plans, you've got business continuity plans, you've got all these different plans, right? But many of those plans are written in case the bad thing happens, right? And we've said it many times. It's not a matter of when, or it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I think we've oversold that statement too, but just play it out. So what I did with this bank president was, he's like, well, we don't need an incident response plan. I'm like, oh, so you can guarantee that you're never going to have an incident? He goes, well, no, I can't guarantee that. Therefore, so my response back was, therefore, you should have an incident response plan. Unless you can guarantee that this isn't going to happen, it's kind of along the same lines with business continuity. It's too many times have we sat across the table from executive management or leadership and had to explain to them that you're not going to recover.
Yeah. Well, and I can't
Schools
tell
are
you.
different, but yeah.
No, well, and how many times during where we're working an incident where one of the business people on it goes, I didn't think this would ever happen, or something along those lines. It's how this happened to us. I thought we were prepared.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, to your point, Evan, schools don't have an option. They got to figure out how to keep going forward. Especially like public schools, they're mandated to continue to go forward. And so you got to have, they'll find a way. It's just thinking about it and planning in advance is much preferable to having to make it up on the fly.
Right.
I've done both.
Mm-hmm.
I try to learn from my own mistakes and help people not repeat my mistakes. And I think it's really, there's value in having plans. The one nice thing about working with schools, colleges, and universities is that they do plan for other scenarios, right? You have active shooter plans, so they have a culture of preparedness. They just have to apply it differently. And I think that when you can leverage something people are already doing, it's easier for them to attach to. In education, we call that scaffolding. You build on what you already know.
Yeah.
That's a great,
Yeah,
I like that. I like that concept.
Yeah, why reinvent the wheel if you've got something that works? Let's just use that to start. I like that a lot.
And when you can show people how they've been successful in the past, it's easier for them to conceive of how they can do the next piece, because they really all tie together.
Well, the one thing about incidents that's universal is when an incident occurs, whether it's a cyber incident or, or a disaster or, a full blown, epidemic or pandemic where you need to pull out your business continuity plan. The one thing that's common amongst all of those is people suffer. If people didn't suffer, nobody would care. I wouldn't be doing this job. I'd be doing something different. But the fact of the matter is people suffer when bad things happen. And so we write these plans to limit the suffering of parents, students, teachers, admin, the community. Hardly, I mean, there's no other institution that's more ingrained in communities than schools.
Yeah, this is true. And in some communities, the school literally is the center of the community. It's the center of sort of the whole town. I mean, I live out west. I live in Oregon. We have districts where the school is the big building in town.
Right. Yeah, it's like the place. Like I've seen it be. I've seen schools used as assembly points when a tornado hits the town and the school's still standing, so everybody meets there. I've seen it used to house people whose homes have been destroyed. Right, they set up cots in the auditoriums and things. I mean, that is such a central part of every community. So I love the fact that you wrote this book, because it goes to the heart of what it is that we do here. Right, let's limit people's suffering. Let's try to make the world a better place. Right,
one step at a time. But yeah, I mean, that was really my main reason, was how do I support this amazing group of people who just don't have the tool set to do this level of planning and make it easy.
You said it earlier, they see it as a mission, and I would agree that almost to a person, anybody that's working in K through 12 or higher ed, they're not doing it just for a paycheck. Like, they're extremely passionate about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And yeah, so doing that with limited resources and high pressure of, right, like you said, K through 12 public schools have to have a certain amount of days open with attendance, and how do you manage and maintain that and support that? And it's good to give them more resources that will make their lives easier.
And that aren't going to take them hours and hours to read.
Yeah, right.
That was my key goal. Let's make this faster.
Faster and less expensive too, right? I mean, a lot of schools, they don't have unlimited budgets. So especially rural schools, I think. So giving them an easy to follow, this is how you do continuity planning, and it may not cost you anything.
Right. Exactly. And you can leverage what you've already done. So let's talk about what you've done and then use that to move forward. Because, no point in duplicating effort either.
Yeah.
Right. Very cool. So I'm going to highly recommend this book. We do work in education. That's one of the markets that we're trying to serve, with COLA and, all the other good people in this industry. I'm also going to recommend it. We have some partners that work in, it's not just written for administrators, or it's not just written for people who are charged with doing continuity planning as employees of, districts or universities or colleges. It's also for consultants. If you're doing consulting for these institutions, follow this, right? Because not only, I think, does it make it easier and less expensive for you to do it, which should mean a smoother, more successful project. But if school district A is doing it this way and school district B is doing it this way too, you've got this commonality in languages across different institutions. There's like additional value in that.
Yeah, I think you've got a great point there, Evan. It helps build momentum, right? If people can share and share alike and use the same language set.
Yeah. So cool. The book is, and actually, we should do a thing, Brad. We should do like the first 3 people or 5 people, listeners, who email us, we'll send them a copy. I got an expense account, man. I can run that thing.
Right.
All right, we'll do that. So the first 5 people to contact us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. We'll send you a free copy of Amy's book, Learning Continuity Planning, a Handbook for Schools, Colleges, and Universities.
You do realize that means we actually have to check the email now.
I know, right?
I
just keep creating more work for myself.
With forward by Ryan Cloutier from Security
Ryan
Studio.
Cloutier. That's right. We like Ryan. All right, good stuff. So, Amy, thanks for joining us, and stick around. We're going to go through, the rest of today's, kind of agenda. We're going to get through, just briefly talk about kind of the status of our book that we're working on, talk about the CISSP Mentor Program and news. So,
Fantastic.
Chime in. Yeah. All right. So our book, Brad, I went down to Cancun. I came back Sunday afternoon. I am self-quarantining now. So it's funny because I almost fell on that, by the way. My plane landed Sunday evening, and John Harmon, the president of FRSecure, texted me and said, "Hey, you coming into the office tomorrow?" Because we had our all company meeting. I was like, yeah, I'll be there, whatever. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I just traveled internationally. I don't think it's a good idea for me to go anywhere. I'll self-quarantine. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing. My wife had a successful dental surgery, which was awesome. She had like 5 teeth pulled and all kinds of stuff. So that was good. In the middle of all that, I did get a jump on our book. I have multiple titles. I don't know which title works the best. I never do. But like Amy said, in my opinion, that is the right way to write the book. You just throw thoughts out, right? Don't stifle the creative process by trying to make sure you did it right. Just vomit stuff on paper, man, and it'll start to make sense.
So your editor and publisher will take care of that, fixing and making suggestions for you. Don't try to make it perfect.
No, and I almost killed and I quote him, the last editor almost killed him.
I remember those stories.
Well, my first chapter, that first chapter could have been a book in that first book. It was just run on. He's like, what the hell are you, Anyway, so it's either going to be this is the titles I have right now. The vCISO Handbook. It's the official guide to VC suing. I like adding ing on the end of words. That one probably won't make it past the marketing people. And the other one is the vCISO Bible. Because Bible, there's the religious form of Bible, but it's also a book regarded as authoritative in a particular sphere.
I'd be interested to see what marketing and all that come back with on that, because I could see that going either way.
Yeah, we can come up with all kinds of different titles. But anyway, the book flows from really basic to more advanced as you get through it, right? There's no sense in us getting right into the advanced stuff if you don't even understand the basics, right?
Mhm.
So section 1 is the basics, assuming we stick with, what we've got for the outline. Chapter 1, information security is a thing. It's not the thing. We get so passionate about security in our industry that we think it's the thing, and we set these expectations way the hell up here, and they're never going to meet them because it's not the thing. It never will be to them.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you lose track of the fact that you should be supporting the business, not dictating how the business functions.
Yes.
right? 100%. That's why you and I are going to have fun, because once we got this and we agree on this outline, then we'll just start divvying up chapters between you and me, because we are co-writing this, right?
Yep.
Chapter 2, what is a VCSO anyway? Chapter 3, methodology matters, right? For a number of reasons. If we don't have a methodology, then I don't know, eventually you get chaos. Section 2 is the fact system. So that's something that we did at FRSecure, specific to FRSecure. So you could call it intellectual property, but we have a mission, and that's not to create a whole bunch of intellectual property. It's to fix the industry. So this is where we open up and make the fact system essentially able to anybody.
Well, and we've talked about this. A lot of the stuff that we're doing isn't right. It's out there. It's the expertise of actually executing it, right? Just because there's something there doesn't mean people can successfully do it.
Well, that's it, man. There's so many, it's like standards, right? There's so many information security standards. What the world doesn't need is another damn information security standard. What we need is, how do I actually apply that standard? How do I actually manage to it? How do I actually measure, to it? And so to your point, man, yeah, the knowing things, knowledge is already out there. It's the how-to that is really hurting right now.
And you're going to have examples, right, Evan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
like case examples. I think people learn most from how somebody else did it.
I think that for sure, when talking to people and being able to relate and say, okay, I've seen this, here's what we've done, here's how other people have done it, and being able to use those real world examples is so powerful, because it's not this, abstract concept. It's this happened. Here's what we can do. Right.
Yeah, I can share examples of getting thrown out of board meetings, so don't do this. That's happened. But chapter 4, first things first. Chapter 5, the journey begins. Point A. Chapter 6, where's point B then? Chapter 7, how are we going to get there? Chapter 8, when will we arrive? Chapter 9, tracking progress. That's all within the fact system. And section 3 is about mastery. Now that you kind of got this thing down, how do you master it? How do you become awesome at it? Chapter 11, mastery requires repetition. Chapter 12, integration and innovation. Chapter 13, but, what about compliance? And that, I like that title, but, what about compliance, right?
Yeah.
I think it'll be a fun book.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said, I think it'll be a fun book. We'll see what happens.
I laughed at that title or of that chapter when I was reading through it. So, yeah, right. I could hear people saying that we've worked with.
Yeah. Well, and the number one driver for information security spending and initiatives is compliance. And what it should be, because we've been doing it wrong for a long time, what it should be is, how does this provide value to the business?
I've said it so many times. If you're looking for checkbox compliance, we're not right for you. We're going to do security properly, and in the process, get you to compliance. But the compliance is kind of a benefit of doing security the right way.
Bingo. Letter of the law versus intent of the law, right? Compliance, if everybody did the intent of the law, they'd be doing something like this. But instead, what they do is they do the letter of the law, which is what's the minimum necessary that I need to do. And how many times have we heard executive management say that?
Oh, yeah.
what's the cheapest way we can get there? What's the least disruptive thing we can do to get compliant? Well, I don't know. I don't want to work with you anymore.
I mean, yeah.
That's what I say.
I had an executive. We had an EMC or something, and one of the drives went, and they're not cheap, right? Like back, gosh, this would have been 10 years ago. So you're looking at, close to $1,000, and it sends an email back and says, with like a link to Amazon with a hard drive, it's like, this is $100. Why aren't we doing this? And trying to explain, like, hey, just because it's the same thing, it's not the same thing.
Right. Yeah, totally. All right. So that's kind of where we're at on the book. Yeah, and I'll be getting some more stuff over to you soon, Brad, and then we'll start divvying it up. We should have a meeting and kind of, hey, I want to do this one. I want to do that one. And then I think the challenge for co-written anything like this with somebody before, I think the challenge is going to be, how do we blend our voices into a cohesive sort of one voice, or we just make it clear that Brad and Evan, right? This is Brad, this is Evan, but we're still in agreement, kind of thing.
I can definitely see a little, whatever they're called, the boxes where like you wrote a chapter and I'll make a comment or add on something, right? So I think there'll be a lot of going back and forth and
different perspectives, man. I'm a huge fan of perspectives. God knows I don't got it all figured out, and you don't either. So maybe between the two of us, we got a little bit more figured out. I don't know.
hopefully.
Well, they keep paying me. Something's happening around here.
That's what I keep saying. Customers ask about the beard, and I was like, well, I must know something because they let me get away with it.
Yeah, they ain't paying me for my looks.
You're right.
I'd be paying somebody else. All right. Well, good. Next thing, CISSP Mentor Program. Registration opened last week. I'm super jacked about this because this has been so core to our mission since the first time we did it, which was 2010. We had 6 students then. I still know those 6 people. I still remember them intimately. They came to the office, right? It was just awesome. And then we had a dinner at the end where we celebrated them making it through. Well, that was 2010. This is 2021. Last year we had 2,040, I think, registered students. So from 6 to 2,040, 100% free, no strings attached. People could think one of two things when you tell them it's free. They either think, well, there must not be any value in it if you're giving it away, or they think, yeah, bait and switch. What are you going to sell me?
Right. Nothing.
Neither of those things exist here.
There's a track record.
Yeah, man. I can't tell you how big of a blessing it is for me to get those emails throughout the year from people saying thank you or asking for an endorsement, because they passed the exam. I've gotten, we've gotten emails from people saying this inspired them to pay it forward. They've been doing something, it's just, man, that's what this is about, right? So that's really cool. Registration opened last week, so you can go to FRSecure.com. Is it under resources or something?
Yeah, it's under resources.
Okay.
Did I see something that there was already 900 people or something? Am I making this up?
I don't know, man.
There's at least one I registered.
Boom. I'm excited about that. I love it. Yeah, and Shelly Grove from the Daily Insanity mentioned that she registered. She's she joked, so do you take repeat students? It's like, yeah, we take all students. There's no, you can have zero experience. You won't be able to be a CISSP, but you can still pass the exam and become an associate of ISC squared until you get the required experience.
Well, and we've had executives that don't have any intent of taking it, just so they understand it better. Like just
Right.
sitting through it and listening and absorbing it it'll change how you think of things and how you look at them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super cool. So open to anybody, high school students, college students, homemakers, career changers, IT folks, business executives, whatever. Everybody's welcome. We have space for as many as it takes. If we run out of space, we'll just make more space. So
Yeah,
that's what we do.
The marketing has set a goal of 4,000 people this year.
Yeah, I can remember when the goal was 20. So that's super cool. What else do I want to mention about that? Oh, okay. So the way the class basically works is we're going to teach you everything that you need to know to pass the exam, and then tell you sprinkle that with real world stuff, like stuff that we actually do. And then we'll tell you about all the things that you can forget about afterwards, because there's a lot of memorization of a lot of stupid stuff, man. I mean, not stupid. Theory wise, it's all right, but it's it's not practical.
Yeah, exactly.
And for me too, I mean, takeaways for people that this, you obviously have the blessings of, getting the encouragement throughout the year, but you also makes you a better security person. It makes me revisit the basics every year. Like, yeah, crap, I should probably do that asset management thing that you talk about. So
yeah, I can't tell you. There's absolutely topics that I'm like, every year I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't thought of this since last year.
Yeah. Those security models, man, that is the driest domain.
I'm not doing it this year.
God. Well, Brian and I already decided you were.
Well, I got stuck with it last year.
You did such a job of it. Yeah, you did such a good job of it, though.
Nope. That was so painful.
Right. We'll make Ryan do it then. He's the youngest. No, wait. Maybe you are.
No.
I don't know. Old people can't do it. I'm 50.
This is my 4th year. I think he can do it this year. Be nice to him his first year, but now he's got some experience. He's got to do it.
Yep. Now he's bought in. Hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. So those are the instructors too. It's me, you, Brad, and Ryan Cloutier. I've gotten a couple of emails lately of other people that would like to also teach. And what I'm thinking I'd rather do, rather than have them teach in this class, is we only do it once a year. Why don't we make this perpetual?
Or
why don't we have another one start, end of second quarter, maybe end of third quarter.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of, can you do it again in the fall? I'm like, no. It's a lot of time that goes into that. But yeah, if we could get another group that could do kind of a second half of the year, I think there would be interest in that.
Well, and at that point we can create essentially a teaching in a box, right? Here's all the slides, here's all the content, here's everything that you need. Here's instructions on how to set up the the streaming section, how to set up the web conference. I mean, just get everything kind of like here, just take this and go.
Yeah, I think the trick is, I think, getting people that have the experience that can speak to it knowledgeably and know versus just reading off slides. Because if we do that, then it's not gonna, I think it won't be as successful. I think that's a big part of what makes it successful is our experience and being able to say, right, like those real world experiences, and here's what you can remember, here's what you don't need to, here's what we, the book says this, you need to know it, but we all know that here's how it actually happens, those types of things.
Yeah, very true. Proper vetting. Anyway, so that's good. I'm excited about that. Anything else to add for that, Brad, Amy? I'm glad that you're in the class, Amy. And Brad, yep. I'm glad you take 1/3 of the workload from me.
Yeah,
I'm glad you take repeats.
Always.
Well, and thank you to the other analysts that help moderate too.
Oh yeah, right, right. And Brandon Mattis for putting it all together. He's the marketing guy behind it.
You got, I think, Chad and Lori and Ryan were the biggest kind of that we were there in and out. So
Yeah, very
big
true.
props to them.
Well, the story behind, and then we'll move the story behind how you got involved. And same with Ryan, by the way. I didn't have to recruit you. I was teaching these by myself. You heard about it. You're like, I'll help. You inserted yourself right into the process. And, but it speaks volumes to your character. And same thing with Ryan. Ryan, like, oh, this is really cool. Part of the mission. I want to help. And so he jumped in last year too.
Yeah.
In the middle of a pandemic.
And then when you realize what you've gotten yourself into, it's too late. So here it is, 4 years later.
But when you share the workload with three, I can
It's-
tell you when I was doing
God.
it myself, it was draining. Even with you and me, it was hard, man. It was a lot of work. With Ryan, now we only have to teach like once every week and a half, 2 weeks. That's
Oh,
pretty easy, actually.
It's so much easier this last time. And I've done the week, you've done it too, the week boot camp, as it were, with the slides where you're doing 7-8 hours a day, 4 to 5 days, and I'd be so completely fried on the way home, just completely on autopilot trying to recover.
Yeah, your voice doesn't work, your tongue goes numb. Doesn't matter how much water you drink either.
No, you can't. At the end of the day, you can't think critically. You're just like completely fried.
And I don't know about you, but I sit in those times. I would I would go home or go to the hotel wherever I was teaching. I think the last one I did was at the University of Miami, and I just go to the hotel and just sit. I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was so tired of hearing my own voice.
Mm-hmm. Just put on something mindless on the TV just to have a distraction for your brain, so it's not focused, and just veg out. Absolutely, it takes a couple hours for me to kind of be like, oh, okay, gosh, I'm hungry. I should probably eat.
Right. All right, good. On to the news. I've got just 3 quick news articles. We don't have to talk about them quickly. I just thought they were interesting. One is from the Hacker News. The title is Joker's Stash, the largest carding marketplace is shut down. It's interesting. These things always happen, right? I mean, they don't live forever. Eventually, somebody talks to somebody leaks something, somebody gives off some sort of signature that identifies who they actually are, and then the authorities come, bust them, and stuff happens.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they originated in 2014 and have generated over $1 billion in revenue.
A lot of money, man. Well, and the way these things work too, it's like now a lot of people who buy things from these places buy things with stolen. They should anyway. I mean, I don't know. I've never bought anything from a marketplace like this, but I certainly wouldn't use my own credit card or anything,
No.
if I was going to. Bitcoin, sure, maybe. But I think a lot of times people are using stolen methods to buy stuff, maybe. If you've never been on the dark web before, you can buy anything.
Be careful.
I mean, anything. Yes, the darkest of the dark stuff is on there, and stuff that you can't ever unsee. So even the curious people are like, oh, I just want to check it out. Okay, be careful. There's things I've seen that I can't unsee, and I wish I wouldn't have seen it, to be honest. All right, so that's that. I thought that was interesting. What else do I have? I have hackers leak. So this is from Threat Post. Hackers leak stolen Pfizer and BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine data. That was only a matter of time. So on the heels of cyber attack, EMA. So EMA is the European Medicines Agency. The crooks got in, compromised data related to the vaccinations. Now, didn't get the actual vaccination itself, right? All the IP and everything that goes into that, but data around it and data about who's gotten vaccines and all that good stuff. Yeah, be careful.
That one's worrisome just because it points out the risks of of organizations that have such highly sensitive data. I mean, the bigger concern is getting a hold of the actual formula or actually messing with the formula. It's the integrity factor rather than the rather than getting the information is what somebody could do to it. I thought about that as I've already received I work in a health clinic, so I received my first immunization, and I thought, don't want anybody to compromise that formula. So.
Yeah.
No,
that's business value, by the way. There's your business value from security right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And messing with it, you can kill people. You could do all kinds of nasty things. Along those same lines, the one critical infrastructure segment that really hasn't gotten the attention it needs to, that is a big concern of mine, is our food supply. The same sort of thing can happen, right? I mean, you can mess with the food supply and endanger a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's relatively easy.
Well, I think with CMMC coming out, there's going to be a lot of agriculture that's going to be in for a little bit of a surprise because they're going to have requirements for at least level 1.
Good.
So hopefully that gets them thinking about it.
Yeah, and the work I've done in ag, it's troublesome. You know what I mean? Yeah, all right. The last news I got is from Beta News. Serious Windows 10 flaw could corrupt your hard drive if you open a folder. All right. A security researcher has revealed details of a strange bug that could result in an NTFS hard drive becoming corrupt in Windows 10. The good thing is your data would still be there. It messes with the allocation table, which is, essentially what tells the operating system where stuff is. So you can recover from it. It's just going to be a pain in the butt, right?
Yeah. I can't wait for attackers to start using this.
Well, hopefully Microsoft will patch.
Oh, yeah.
So complete with running the command cd $$ lowercase I 30 $$ bitmap will essentially destroy the hard drive. Don't do it.
Please don't.
Right. Or do it in a lab.
Please don't do it on my machines.
Right. And this is what labs are for. Okay, that's all I got for news. Brad, do you have anything to add on that? Amy, anything to add on that news stuff?
Not really. Just know that they didn't get the formula and you should still get your immunization.
Yes, please. My mother actually is getting hers. She's 73. And I was asking her when she's scheduled for, I think, her first shot in beginning of February, so only a couple of weeks away, and then her second shot towards the end of February. So I'm really excited for her to get her vaccine.
My wife is a nurse. She gets her first shot tomorrow, so she's excited. I'm excited because she has to go in to the clinic still, so it'll be one less thing to stress about.
Totally, man. I think you get such a peace of mind from getting the vaccine. And for the anti-vaxxers out there, or the people that think there's some kind of conspiracy crap here, seriously.
Talk to somebody who's had it.
Yeah, check your brain. We talk about mental health. Maybe there's an issue there. There's no shot we can give you for mental health for fixing that. Well, maybe. I don't know. Whole nother thing. All right, so that's it for episode 115. Thank you, Amy, for joining us. Really, really good to see you. Love the book. I'm excited to see where it takes, the impact it has on that industry.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. And Brad, always good.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again. Any shouts for anybody? We already gave, I think, a shout out to the people that support the CISSP Mentor Program. Anything else come to mind? Amy, you got a shout out?
Oh, I will. Shout out to Ryan for writing the foreword, and for to Ryan, Greg, and Steve for really supporting me when I wrote this book.
Awesome.
That would be Ryan Cloutier, of course, my spouse, Steve McLaughlin, and Greg Sanker, who is writes change management books and is in the top 50 or ITIL people in the ITSM people in the universe.
Yeah, and so spell his last name in case you viewers want to find his books or anything.
Sanker.
Okay.
Greg
There you go.
Sanker.
Brad, you got anything? Are we done with our shout outs? If we give too many of them, it just waters it down.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good with just the shout outs to people helping with the CISSP.
Yeah, me too. All right. Thank you for all listeners. Send things to us by email at unsecurity@protonmail.com. Just a reminder, the first 5 people who email us there, and we'll just go by timestamps because we don't check the email all the time. The first 5, they'll get a copy of Amy's book. We'll get it sent to you. If you're the social type, socialize with us on Twitter. I'm at Brad Nye. Wait, no, I'm not. You're at Brad Nye. And I'm at Evan Francine. Unless I compromise Brad's account, then I'm at Brad Nye. But I'm not planning on doing that.
I could say we could tell you've been up all night.
Yeah. Amy, how do you want people to get a hold of you? Do you have a Twitter or anything?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's the best way to find me.
All right. It's Amy, AMY, McLaughlin, McLaughlin. Is that close?
Yay, good job.
See, I'm still functional. Lastly, be sure to follow Security Studio. It's at Studio Security because we like to mix things up for you. And FRSecure for more things that we might be doing. We're going to be giving away free stuff. We like helping people, man. That's why we do this. That's it. We'll talk to you again next week.